Welcome back to another episode of the Supply Chaney podcast. I am your host, Nathan Chaney, and today we're going to do one of my favorite things, which is to talk about networking, connecting people, and events in the supply chain industry. But rather than this being a Monday morning events live stream, this is a podcast. And I'm thrilled to have Stephane, who is the founder and chairman of Deliver Events, as my guest. He's calling in from across the pond over in Europe. And I'm really just looking forward to understanding a little bit more about what made Stephane who he is and how he came about to have this idea of creating this series of events that we all know a lot of us have experienced called Deliver. So with that said, Stephane, could you take a moment and tell everyone just a little bit more about yourself and, kind of what you're all about?
Yes. First of all, thank you very much, Nathan, for having me on that podcast. I really appreciated it when we did it last time. So thank you for having me again. And it means that I didn't make such a terrible job the other time then. So yeah, just a couple of words about me. So I'm based in France. As you could hear from my accent, my very thick accent. But I did live in New York State for like 1 year. It was like 25 years ago, And so this is and something. If you want me to share something personal, I was in the city in NYC during the 9/11 situation. So it was something which stayed with me all that long. So I feel very connected to the US, and I am a father of three, or as I can say, of four, because I consider Deliver as one of my children, and a very demanding one. Because it's a baby which I gave birth to like 10 years ago now, exactly 10 years ago, and yes, which now is not yet a teenager, but which already grew to be like a global brand with editions now in Europe, US. The next one being in 2 weeks in Vegas. We have also Asia, and now a new launch in Middle East in Dubai.
Yeah, excellent. I appreciate the call out to how many children you have, and including all of them here, including kind of your passion here with Deliver. I would really like to try to go back in time a little bit and understand the person and the human behind supply chains and behind these businesses that bring us all together. So can you talk a little bit about your early years and your upbringing? Where did all that occur?
Sure. So so I just in a nutshell, so I did study political science, which is not really supply chain related. I did the business school, and maybe like many people, I don't know, to be honest, but I fell into supply chain randomly. So it was until random stuff, because I got it was not at all what I was looking for, and I got hired in a prominent e-commerce business which was active throughout Europe. It was a company which was making a 1 billion revenue a year, and I was in charge of their. After a couple of years, I was in charge of their distribution policy, so store delivery and also B2C deliveries across mostly Europe, even though we had a bit of a global business. Actually, from entering by luck that industry, I fell so much in love with it. I mean, I said, "Wow, this is." I really call it the good luck of my professional life, because I knew nobody around me who was into that field. I didn't study it. I didn't have any I didn't feel attracted to it initially, but really when I saw the potential that field has, I was really extremely happy, because it's a field where if you like to solve problems, this is an amazing place, because you have to be extremely precise. You have to have to go through all those parameters, right, to make the customer experience right at the level of cost expected. So as a problem solver, I enjoy myself terribly.
I like it. I like it. One thing I often find, especially when I'm talking with more senior folks in the industry, is that so many of them were, I like to say, borrowed from other fields of study and educational backgrounds and work backgrounds, and that they've all kind of fell into supply chain by one way or another. I'm kind of curious, what compelled you to go and study, what you originally did in school? What was kind of the logic behind your first pursuits or passions?
Very good question, Nathan. I'd say it was so it was more something which drove me since my early days is like curiosity. I'm someone extremely curious and maybe sometimes too curious. Typically when the internet came, I was like 15, so that was like 30 years ago. Now I'm almost 45. So in those years, like 1994, 95, when I discovered what the internet was, it was for me like such a revelation because the internet is basically you moving from one link to the other one. And that's exactly how my brain is structured. And I got so much drawn by this, and sometimes like going very deep into the this. And if I even today I open like a Wikipedia article, I mean sometimes I finish so far off what I initially wanted. So curiosity brought me to study to go into that political science school where I could learn international relations, politics, sociology, economics. So it was history. So it was very broad, right? So for me, it's I'm very proud of it because my origin or extremely modest. I was born as a poor boy, and so my parents were like Polish immigrants in France, so we had very little money, and that school is one of the best schools in France. So I was quite proud of getting myself there. And after this, I wanted to specialize into something which were more maybe bankable if you wanted to find a job, and that's why I did also like the kind of the business school in France, which is part of the kind of the Ivy League of of schools in France. Yeah.
I see. I see. I appreciate you being transparent and sharing about that story, and even more so just, human to human here. I love that you kind of anchor it back to the concept of just being curious. I think there's so much value in that. Let's maybe move forward a little bit to your first experiences working in the supply chain industry. Can you kind of talk us through those experiences?
Sure. So that company was called like Pixmania. So it's a business which is now much smaller today compared to what it used to be. But actually, I was hired as a buyer. So I was in charge of negotiating the contracts with courier companies, and so we the idea was to indeed to always propose like new options for our customers across the entire European continent. So pretty much like a lot of cross-border business, and yeah, so sourcing, doing the RFQs, negotiating the contracts, down to implementing those new solutions, new partners into the website. So there was a lot of also like marketing stuff as well. And after like a couple of years, I got promoted as the head of that department, which was very exciting because there was if my numbers are still right, so something around like 25 to 30 million USD in budget. So we were like shipping like millions of packages a year, and yeah, so a lot of stress, but a lot of pleasure as well.
So I appreciate that one of your first roles or your first forays into the industry was as a buyer and a contract negotiator with couriers. That's so applicable, I think, to what you're doing today. How about your next stop after Pixmania? If I'm looking, did you at some point start to incorporate e-commerce and that sort of side of the industry into your roles?
I would say that after this, I made like a small pause in my career because I during like 1 year or so, yeah, I worked on a voluntary basis with e-commerce associations, right? So
Okay.
both on my local level in France and at European level, I created the think tanks to establish white papers and to influence the policymakers at both the French and European level. Yes, and working with many also e-commerce players, trying to understand what were their issues and how collectively we could influence the policymakers. So that was, and I did it as a voluntary basis with those associations, because I wanted also to give back, because these were associations that my employer Pixmania was part of. Yes, also it was another job, but also very, very exciting, and I loved it.
Okay, all right. It's fun that you moved in and you spent time in this e-commerce and e-logistics sort of world when just a moment ago you were talking about how you kind of came of age right as the internet was becoming this thing. And so it must be it's kind of exciting, at least from my perspective, to be able to see that, this thing that used to just be a very simple, basic concept of the internet, and later became a place where you spent a significant amount of your time and effort, working in commerce in that particular sector. I'm kind of curious about, do you have any perspectives or musings on the concept of the internet and commerce and how it's affected supply chains and logistics over the years?
I mean, I think there are few fields where the e-commerce has disrupted that much than supply chain, because the pre-e-commerce supply chain was so different, where basically it was mostly a matter of delivering like pallets to stores, in stores or your kind of internal customers. So when, let's say, when the chief supply chain officer of Walmart in the 90s was delivering its goods to the stores, for sure there was like pressure and everything, but he was delivering like, internal customers. So if like one pallet gets delayed, or if there is like a damage, your internal customers is, in my view, never as demanding as an external customer. And even though there are more stakes, and even though like when there is like a Target or Walmart delivery, of course we're talking about like a huge value behind. But I think it still like remains like internal and between colleagues. So yeah, and that was at the time where the traceability was much lower, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so now like I'm sure that you, Nathan, when you are ordering at any e-commerce website, you're having like higher expectations in terms of
Yeah.
cost and timing and that relationship between the moment you click buy and the moment you get the goods, the click to possession, as we call it, that like those store managers ago.
That's such an interesting perspective. I can see what you're saying. It was so much more of a B2B world or an internal customer delivery world in the past, where because everything was brick and mortar and everyone's going to a store and their point of contact with a brand was at that personal level in a store. And now it's not full pallets, it's small parcels directly from customers to the clients, and with high expectations and the ability to instantly leave feedback and ratings and reviews of that service that can impact your future sales because of one bad transaction, possibly with one customer in one location. So, uh, I hadn't thought about it that way before, but that's a really profound way of thinking of how the internet has transformed the way we operate supply chains, just in that one little slice of it. Thank you for sharing that. My next question is how did you then transform from what you were doing here in these roles to creating Deliver? I would really love to hear that sort of that aha moment or that light bulb or the inspiration behind it.
Yeah. So, and that story, which I get asked a lot about, like, why did I create, and Deliver? It's a very boring answer, because it's the answer that it's the most entrepreneurs are giving, or at least that's what I'm hearing from others entrepreneurs, is basically just put on the market the product that I wanted for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And and because that product didn't exist, I just said, okay, let's put one. So that's why it's boring, because it's usually why entrepreneurs are just going out there and launching. Because when I was at that person in charge of procuring and basically all the distribution, everything which was downstreams from the our main warehouse. We had several warehouses, but we had one big. So from our warehouses to the customers, so I was the go-to person in the company.
Mm-hmm.
And and for me to continue finding the right partners across the continent, for me to get always on the edge of what was all the trends and on the supply side, on the demand side. I was an avid participant of many trade shows across many
Mm-hmm.
countries, and I always kind of had this impression that none of them was really meant for people like me, right? Either because they had this very wide spectrum, so they were covering supply chain among many other verticals, right? Like payments, like technology, standalone technology, or customer care, or exactly marketing, you name it, right? So, and usually for some reason, I don't know why, but in those trade shows, supply chain is always the smallest bit. You have always, like, at those generic trade shows, like a huge chunk of marketing exhibitors and yeah, those shiny technology providers. But when it comes to supply chain, it was just like a small chunk of the exhibitors in that a remote and dark part of the expo hall.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so that was one. Or on the other side, because they were already like supply chain events already, but they were very local and not international. Whereas for me, typically, I was in charge of finding supply chain solutions for like 30 countries. So I could not attend like shows like 30 shows a year, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there was nothing at that scale. And last, I would say none of these shows were really like for me premium. They were like kind of open to everybody. So you could find, okay, you had like lots of very small companies going there, or people who are less relevant. So I'm not saying this to disrespect, like companies like with less revenues, for sure. There need to be trade shows for everybody, for sure. But when you are a key decision maker and you want to procure like $1 million solutions, you need to be like focused. Your time is extremely precious, and you need to be like right on point and discuss with peers, people who have that scope as well, like you, and also discuss with the right decision makers, also like on the supply side. And you know what? So those very high volume trade shows where was feeling a bit drawn in them. So that's why I created that Deliver, which is very industry focused. So we do only supply chain, nothing else. We think it's already wide enough. We are always operating at a continental level, right? So because we believe that the issues and the challenges are the same, whether you are in the US or China or Germany. I mean, it's roughly where the chief supply chain officers are, like looking for the same kind of solutions everywhere.
Yeah.
And we wanted really, I would really wanted to make it like a glamour, already. I wanted to sexify the supply chain and give our industry a very cool and very high end and very sexy show.
I can sympathize with that idea because typically transportation, I think, which is kind of the root of all supply chain, has traditionally been a very gritty, industrial type of industry and work. And so I think it's a nice concept to try to make it a little more fun and exciting and high energy. But appreciate that effort. I also appreciate and I can identify that this was, in the role that you were in, you were the one looking for solutions. You were the procurement, the one looking for innovations and savings and how to make your supply chains better. And you've built the event around solving for that problem, and not necessarily, for example, a provider or a vendor saying, how do I, do things to try to go to find clients. You are operating and building this from the perspective of someone looking for solutions at scale. at a large
Yeah.
scale. I think there's one thing that's very unique about the model and your approach, and that is the mission-led, sustainable focus of it. And I don't think I've seen any other events quite like that have that. Can you talk a little bit about what drove you or inspired you to have that type of approach to it?
Sure. So actually, yes, we are now officially since September like a mission-led company, which means that in our bylaws we have written that now we have now like higher ESG commitments. And so now our mission is embedded into like the legal framework of the business, right? So we are basically like holding ourselves like accountable to like higher standards, right? So it's not just no longer only me as a founder leading it. Now it's the entire business with me, but the entire company which is now incentivized to to incorporate ESG into like everything we do. We do this because I believe we. I mean, for us, it was obvious because I feel we don't have any choice. I know it might sound a bit, strange, but there are many things happening now with in the world, with the inequalities growing everywhere, with the global warming. I know some people might not agree to this, but there is a global warming as part of an industry which is part of the problem because we are carbon heavy because we push people to travel mostly by plane to make like a long haul flights. So I wanted also to be part of the solution, and that comes with the fact that since the very first show 10 years ago, we were always just striving to diminish as much as we could our emissions in the solutions we were like finding, and also we always like compensated all our emissions. So we have emitted almost like 7,000 tons of CO2 across all our shows and within 10 years, and everything has been turned into credits to either plant or safeguard trees in the Amazon forest. So that's why we call it our deliver forest in a way.
I like it. I like it. There's I think, I'm attending my very first one of these, and I feel so fortunate to be able to do that here soon in Vegas. Can you kind of like help me understand like kind of what I can expect, and for attendees that maybe haven't attended, what is the experience like, maybe on both sides? What is the format, and what is the experience like there at the shows?
Yeah. So what you see from the first site, you will not see a difference compared to other shows because you will see like conferences and you'll see stands and so from the outside it looks like any other show. However, but very quickly you'll see that everyone who you come across with is a decision making person. So already you see, oh, wow, it's like the Davos of retail logistics here. I mean, I'm always surrounded by people who matter in the industry, and so there is no free riders, so it's extremely concentrated in power and decision making power. And second is that for our people who are at the very core of our business model, so the exhibitors, right, those logistics vendors on one hand, and the retailers who are the buyers on the other hand, they are at the moment we speak already like building their schedules, their agendas, and they are building what we call like the digital twin of the show. So meaning that already now we already have like more or less already half of all the meetings which are pre-scheduled, which are already like booked. And we opened our matchmaking platform only like on this Monday, which means that in the lead up to the show, people are basically selecting like what they want to do. Just attend like an educational session, another like a logistics vendor, meet another retailer colleague in the industry. So you build up your kind of your agenda, and when you come in, basically you know exactly what you are here for. So there is nothing left to serendipity or luck. basically you are already, you know what you're doing at the show before the show. So this is really the secret sauce, and then we just execute. And this is how people, then our customers, they find like an amazing return on investment with us, and our delegates, the retailers, they find an amazing return on their time
Yeah.
experience.
I can see that having that sorted out before, because when you get to a big show, a big event, you're kind of just sometimes a bit just surprised and shocked. And it takes a while to just acclimate to the surroundings and the environment and the schedule and everything. And so I can see that if you kind of come in with a schedule ahead of time, that you can be so much more efficient with your time and not lose any wondering about and debating and deciding what to do next, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. Also, it's also because we are focusing so much on quality over quantity. So it's a small scale event. So we are just like in the few hundreds. All right, but you know that if you're here for a purpose. You're here because it provides value for everybody, right? So we focus on quality on everything we do, on the content and on the turnout. So you will not feel like overwhelmed.
I see. Okay. All right. Not 50,000 people then. Okay. All right. A little bit different. Is there anything kind of before we wrap up the episode here today that you want to make sure to pass along to listeners?
So I would say that as our third edition in the US, we're extremely really proud of the response we got from the US market. So we feel our product is very different and got a good echo. And I also, because you mentioned the fact that we are mission led, that's also when you are joining our show, you're also contributing to a business which is investing also like all its profit into sustainability and social causes since day one as well. And that, you're part of a business which is here to do good, also to promote so sustainability, also promoting like women also in retail. We are having like a key moment where we are having like we call it a women in retail breakfast on the show. So it's so we and at the same time you are here for work, but we're also here for having a good time. And we are planning like a very very strong, a very cool show, a very cool like Halloween show at the Paris pool, and we're gonna be having a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see you there.
I'm looking forward to it myself. Well, thank you for coming on and sharing your experience in the industry and your inspiration for solving a problem that you yourself recognized. And I don't think there's any boringness to having a problem and solving it. You know, so many people have problems that they do not address, they just live with them. And so it takes a special kind of person to acknowledge this thing, say, I'm going to go do something about it. So kudos to you. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
Exactly the same. I can't wait, Nathan.
Okay. All right. Goodbye.
Cheers. Bye.